good evening. I'm Melisa Idris. Welcome to Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. In today's episode, we'll delve into the increasingly complex terrain of higher education as it grapples with the integration of generative AI. Now, while some universities are eagerly embracing the promise of AI, others remain apprehensive, grappling with concerns over academic integrity and the erosion of traditional pedagogical methods. So joining me on the show today to discuss the rise of AI in academia, I have two guests tonight. Professor Mushtak Al-Atabi, who is the chairman of the Vice Chancellors Council for Private Universities, as well as the Provost and CEO of Heriot-Watt University, Malaysia, as well as Dr Malissa Maria Mahmud, who is Dean of Sunway University's School of Education and Head of the Department of Professional and Continuing Education. Both of you, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today. An exciting topic, and I want to get the lay of the land in academia to begin our conversation. Where do you see, both of you see the conversation surrounding AI, generative AI, in higher education positioned today? I mean, how are universities responding to it, broadly speaking? Can I get you to begin, Mushtak?
Yeah, sure, of course. I think the conversation is evolving, and the conversation starts with plagiarism, preventing plagiarism and things like that. But I think it is increasingly moving into other domains. I'll give you an example. I was speaking to one of our students and I said, what do you use ChatGPT for? He said, when I don't understand something from my lecturers, I go to ChatGPT and say, explain this to me as if I were 5 years old.
Oh, wow.
So that's an interesting way. Now, why this is an interesting thing? Because many of the academics around the world, if you ask them, why did you join academia? They will tell you, I like to share my knowledge. And I really think that notion of us being the owners of the knowledge that we are sharing with others is being sort of threatened. And I think that would require that we reinvent ourselves. So what is the value that we add to our students? So that there are these elements that are taking place as well.
Okay, I can see that shift in conversation where it started with plagiarism, but it feels quite scary knowing that we're kind of on the cusp of a disruption, of a disruptive technology. Dr. Melissa, where do you see the conversations around AI on campus and outside of campus?
I do think that generative AI, it is unprecedented potential. It has created and contributed to this abundance of efficiency. Let me give you an example. For example, in terms of grading, now we can automate that. And in terms of creating of syllabus or curriculum, we can also automate that. And I think from the student perspective, it has created an avenue for students to be within a space where they can personalize their learning experience. And I think with regards to the conversation where we are at now, it is important to acknowledge the potential, but at the same time, okay, there are, these are opportunities, right, Melissa? But at the same time, there are these challenges. And I believe that these challenges can be addressed quite simply by having conversations.
Okay, before we get there, let's lay out what are the challenges. So you talked about some of the positives, the opportunities, right? You talked about automated grading and personalized curriculum. Where are the challenges in your view?
I do think, just to pick up on Prof. Mushtak, point where he did mention a little bit about, plagiarism. So the issue on, integrity and ethics can be, we need to first create awareness rather than putting a halt and a stop or even a pause. Let's, create this, environment where not just students, but even administrative staff at the university can be part of the conversation and at the same time, okay, contribute to what they think would be the most beneficial for them.
Okay, Mushtak, what about you? Where do you think the negative impacts, the risks could lie?
There's something that we need to recognize. that AI is not just a tool. I know many people say, oh, this is just a tool, just another technology. This is a very different technology. This is the first time in our entire history as a human species where we've created a technology that has the potential of improving itself, making decisions, reacting and responding in an unprecedented way. So think of a nuclear bomb. The nuclear bomb is an amazing sort of complex technology to figure out. But this technology still needs a human being to say, you know, put the bomb on a plane and go and use it in that way. So it wouldn't be used without a human sort of influence. Currently, if you look at AI, even the makers of AI cannot tell you how AI is producing what it's producing. I've been looking at and testing actually some AI detection tools. It's called GPT-0. So you take anything from AI, put in GPT-0, it would tell you whether this is from AI or human, right? And I ask experts in AI, I say, how did it do it? Because it's so accurate. They say, we have no clue. What we do, we give it text after text after text, and then it figures it out on its own, and we don't know how does it do it. So I think this is the essence of the challenge, not only for education or higher education, but for the society. And I think the conversation, in my view, needs to evolve quickly from just helping each other, because, you know, just to share a little story, someone wrote to our Vice Chancellor and said, I've created this tool that could do all the marking on behalf of your staff. As you could tell, I talk about AI all the time, so the Vice Chancellor forwarded it to me. And I actually said, my biggest worry is that we get a tool to do the marking, our students use AI to produce the material to be marked, and then AI produce the material, the reports or the thesis or whatever. We use AI to market, and there is no learning that took place. I think, so ultimately, to my mind, I think AI can be used by people when they are motivated to learn so that they learn. And if there is lack of motivation, then people will just use it to do, you know, shortcuts. I see now job applications, and they have brilliant covering letters. And I put that in the detection, and that's AI. And you know, this is not a good thing for the person who produced a covering letter with AI, because I want to know your English, your level of English.
But why is it not a good thing for the applicant?
Yes.
For them, it is a tool that will help level the playing field for them, will close whatever bridges, inequalities that they may have as education.
So let me tell you. So if I would like to appoint this person to be someone who gives a great speech, and based on what they have given me, they have brilliant English. So English is a requirement. Now, when I come to interview you, and then your English is broken, you don't have, so I think even when you use it to improve your communication, in my view, I tell the people around me, I said, look, put it there and learn from it so that you improve. Now, the issue is, if you use this as crutches, then you will forever be dependent on it.
Okay, let's talk about how teaching, learning, and assessments have to change in the age of AI in academia.
Let's talk.
Because the beginning of this conversation, we talked about plagiarism, and I think that's the crux of everything, the idea that students will use this in their coursework, they won't be learning, it's considered plagiarism, and then faculty will use it to grade and all of that. How do we think about how teaching and learning and assessments need to change? Is there a place for AI in coursework, for instance? Dr. Melissa, what do you think?
I do think definitely there's a place for AI. But just to pick up on what you mentioned earlier, it is important for us to reimagine and redesign the way we look into assessment. Because again, we can't use AI as the main tool. If it were to be a crutch, then, you know, the absence of AI tool would then, you know, everything will fall apart, right?
If you're using AI to generate your assessments, your assignments, all of that, it's...
So it is a good opportunity now for academics, you know, within the space of higher education to look into how we redesign the assessment to ensure that this tool is just a supplementary rather than the tool which would then solve all the world's problem. Because we need to remember, when you become too reliant on specific thing, it diminishes critical thinking, which I think could be one of the crux of the problem, you know, especially when everything is based on AI. And the thing about AI, we have to remember, we train all this tool, and it can't be evidently proven that whatever being generated by, for example, ChatGPT, you know, can be inherently biased.
Yes.
Yeah. So we need to be really cautious, you know, with what being generated. We need to create this, not just awareness, and this is the opportunity where we can look into the syllabus, where AI can be one of the important, you know, not to say cost, but something that we talk about. Again, conversation, again, awareness, again, the way we look into how we approach AI and how we can in a way welcome AI as part of the teaching and learning, as part of how we, you know, deliver, you know, our courses and subjects.
How do we get to that point where we're no longer just running students' assignments through an AI detector and then seeing how many % AI it is, and using that as a benchmark for plagiarism, for instance? How do we get beyond that and think about assessing the critical thinking and learning of university students, and in the age of AI, with AI as a supplementary tool?
So let me tell you my personal vision. So interestingly, MQA has this staff-student ratio of 1 to 20 as a good ratio.
Okay.
So for every lecturer, you have 20 students.
Okay.
So that's fantastic. Now, if you look at our academic staff now, they spend so much of their time marking, doing administrative work, and so on. Now, imagine if you could, that all that administrative work, or most of it, is done by AI. Yeah? And imagine if we actually tell people that this is done by AI, but then the academic staff will spend like 90% of their time with these 20 students. They will need to know them by name, and the assessment becomes, sure, you use AI to learn about any topic, balancing the accounts, designing heat exchanger, whatever that might be, but then the assessment will become, come and present this work in this group, and let's talk about it. Let's bring people from the industry to listen to you, because now the academic staff will have sufficient time to know that this is Melissa, and I know her. In her year 1, she built that. In her year 2, she designed this. In her year 3, she did that. And then I will say she's an engineer or an accountant or whatever that might be. So this becomes actually a more authentic learning rather than less. And then we need to be able to say, you know what? I don't want a report, because most likely this will be written by AI. I want you to stand and defend this design for me, and sell it to me, and tell me why it's a better design, why it's a safer design, why it's a more sustainable design, an environmentally friendly design, and so on. So then it becomes, we are really building these elements that we have been trying to build for so long, like ability to speak, ability to convince, having self-confidence. So I think that is one vision we could move into, but that requires that we move from the almost all of the traditional assessment. I think the real issue here is we are using traditional assessment, and then we are superimposing AI on it and say, how can I do this? How can I still give you to, you know, ask you to write a thesis, but then I check whether you have used AI to do it.
That's right.
Move away from that, you stand, and then the knowledge will be within you. And I totally agree with Dr. Melissa about the diminishing of faculty. So for example, look at memory. People my age used to, when I was 10 or 12, I remember probably 100 phone numbers, 100. Now I remember only my current number and my house number in 1970 something.
That's true. The house that you grew up in.
Yes, I still remember the number,
yeah.
right? But the thing is, this is memory as a faculty has diminished because we are utilizing our tools to do it. And I think we need to be very careful that we don't, for example, rely on tools alone. So just imagine if we don't have good command of English, and all of us use the Google Translate or whatever to translate, because I see sometimes some students who just rely on the technology to communicate. But that means they will never be able to be communicators on their own. You know, you go to a party and have an engaging conversation, and that's what, you know, what makes us human.
Your vision is compelling, I have to admit, for what we want our future university students to be able to do, the skills that they should have. But what would it take for assessments to be disrupted in that way, to be completely overhauled and changed for teaching, learning and assessments? Because if one university does it and the rest doesn't, then they're like, this sounds too hard for me, I'm going to go to the other university, particularly in the private sector, the private landscape. Are all universities on board embracing the disruption of AI? What makes different universities approach it differently? Dr. Melissa.
I can only speak for Sunway University. At Sunway University, we have constituted guidelines for students, academics, and even the admin staff to follow. And we are in the plan to come up with framework and initiatives to ensure that this will then translate into different pockets of projects. And this will definitely look, one of the projects will definitely look into how we can redesign our syllabus. I think it is important for us to embrace this. We can't, you know, push this away. It is inevitable, because when it comes to technology, you know, it is always evolving. And every now and then, you are faced with these disruptive tools. And the thing about, you know, disruption, the way you manage, you know, this disruptive behavior is the utmost importance, rather than putting a stop and trying to be so in denial.
Yeah, or fearful of it.
Yes,
you know,
fearful of it.
Approaching it in a way that's maybe more conservative,
yes.
or more kind of wait and see. I know that there are companies, there are universities, organizations who say, well, we've been doing this way for years, hundreds of years even. We're not going to kind of, it will shake the integrity of
That's
academia, right? I mean, it shakes it to the core. Mushtak, what do you think will happen if some universities race ahead to adopt AI and others don't?
So let me tell you one thing. First of all, I think this is happening whether universities like it or not.
Yes.
I can almost see it, right? Because you just imagine if you keep on trying to keep the old premise of assessment, reports and theses and stuff like that. Even actually the exam with the technology now is going to be very difficult to control the plagiarism. So it will be always a cat and mouse, right? So the best way is to move on. So that's one element. The second element, I speak to employers. Dr. Melissa speaks to employers. And when I speak to employers, none of them told me, Mushtak, could you please teach your students a bit more math and a bit more physics? And you ask any employer in the world, what skills do you want in the graduates? And they will tell you communication, self-confidence, empathy, working with people, and so on. We call these things the 21st century skills. You know what? I'm from the 20th century. They were the same skills we were looking for back, you know, a century ago. It doesn't change. Okay. And I think what's happening here is we are focusing, because we needed to focus on building the knowledge, and we sort of not ignored or left that part aside. Now, these are skills that are very difficult to teach, they're very difficult to learn, and they're very difficult to assess. And I think maybe the AI is our opportunity to actually have a real attempt at doing something with these skills. Now, the AI will create content, knowledge, and all of that. But when I speak to people who have children, and I say, when your kids are online, are they learning nuclear physics? And they're not. They are actually doing computer games. So what needs to happen so that our young people go and learn, you know, without even the need for an academic to chase them or give them an assignment or the threat of an exam? I think you need motivation. So let me tell you about something that we've started. Just give me a minute.
Yeah, sure.
So at Heriot-Watt University, we started this probably 6 years ago, where we focused on helping our students find their sense of purpose. So every one of our students and every one of our staff, they will spend the first couple of weeks of their journey with the university to articulate their impact statement, which has what is their superpower, where is their purpose, and how will they mobilize that purpose into a positive impact on the world.
You can't use ChatGPT for that, right?
Well, you can produce something beautiful, but it's nothing.
It has to come
Absolutely.
from within. Okay.
Let me give you an example, if you would indulge me. We run probably one of the world's best actuarial science programs. Very high entry, very smart kids. I ask them when they join, why are you doing this? They will say, well, I love math. And my mother said, if you become an actuary, you can make a lot of money. Now, after we put them through this program, let me read you a real impact statement of a real 18-year-old student. It reads like this. I am a math lover. My purpose is to use my mastery for math to reduce complexity for others when they need it the most. I am an actuary. I don't know about you, but I have chill down my spine every time I read it, because finally this young person has figured out why he is doing this. And I think that would be something that would motivate him. And I think this bit of finding our sense of purpose will be the biggest contribution that AI has given us, because now we will have first the space to discover who we are and focus on it. And secondly, the urge, because you can't just get a job based on the knowledge you have. You have to be very, very different. I will make a prediction. In 5 to 10 years from today, people will go to universities and schools primarily to find about themselves and learn what makes them special and different, and secondarily to learn about a body of knowledge that is accounting or engineering or psychology.
That's a future, say that lies in our future, Dr. Malissa, that requires even the faculty, even academics themselves to pivot, to adapt, to evolve. You mentioned thinking up a new syllabus, adapting the syllabus, but pedagogical methods must also change. We can't just rely on the same old teaching methods, right?
Definitely.
How do you view that? Building capacity within the faculty, within the administrators themselves, to adapt to children, graduate students who are embracing AI wholeheartedly?
I think we are on the verge of not just trying to understand and trying to educate ourselves about all these different AI tools. We are on the verge of making sure that this is the correct tool for the class, for the kind of approach and delivery that you want to have within your classroom. Therefore, in terms of the support system within, a university, for example, has to first come. For example, training, workshop, webinars. Not just that they create awareness, then it would then channel and translate into the kind of implementation. And at this point, when implementation, definitely there are a lot of experiment, and implementation will then go into the integration within the classroom. And not only that we create this community of awareness, we need to support from the end-to-end process to ensure that it would then be
buy-in and support, investment into this, right?
This has to be continuous. It can't be one-off. Like, for example, I can't just ask my staff to go and attend a workshop and that's it. It has to come within an implementation, integration, and perhaps, I do not want to use this word, KPI, because that's one of the best way for us to push for something to be done. And I think I did mention about the support system and having, let's say, for example, someone who is more senior within, the department or the university to mentor all these new young academic staff, administrator. I think it's a good practice. And, within these good practices, we can create this community which would then, prosper, and they're not afraid. They're not fearful of this disruptive technology, like AI. And God knows in the future what else will come our way.
Definitely. Well, your enthusiasm, both of you, is infectious. And just based on the way you're approaching this, I'm encouraged and optimistic to see how universities change, how the landscape changes to adapt to AI. But unfortunately, we've run out of time. We could talk about this for another hour or two, I'm sure. But thank you both for sharing your insights. I think that there's more to talk when there's more to come. So thank you both for being on the show with me tonight. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
That's all we have for you on this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris, signing off for the evening. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.